Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show. We have a special guest. You remember, friend of the show, Gayle McLaughlin. She's a two-term mayor of Richmond, California, and she led a successful grassroots movement to liberate the city from the grip of corporate giants like Chevron. That's right. She won. She beat Chevron, and she's running for lieutenant governor, and we're glad to have her back. It's Gayle McLaughlin. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Jimmy. It's so great to be back on the show.
Thanks for coming in. And so now your big thing is that you're a real deal progressive. You're endorsed by Our Revolution.
Yes.
And you don't take any corporate money. In fact, you have a great history of beating corporations because you beat Chevron in Richmond, California. And now tell briefly what happened.
Yeah, so I have a track record of the work in Richmond beating big corporations like Chevron in particular. So I became mayor in 2006. I was a council member in 2005. I was elected mayor in 2006, reelected in 2010, termed out as mayor, and ran again in 2014 for council to keep the work going. And to give you an example of what we were up against, in 2014, Chevron, the big oil refinery in our city, spent $3.5 million to try and defeat me and other progressives running for city council that race. And you know what? We all won. All the progressives won, and all the Chevron-funded candidates lost. So we showed it could be done in a city like Richmond, where we have this big money against us. Right now, we have 5 corporate-free council members out of 7 sitting on the city council, a supermajority.
Well, so now why did Chevron want to defeat you? What was the issue?
Yeah, so, Chevron, prior to an organization that I co-founded called the Richmond Progressive Alliance, we co-founded this in 2003, and then I ran for council in 2004 as the first corporate-free elected official. So this organization, the RPA, Richmond Progressive Alliance, really fought back against all the corporate domination of our city by Chevron. And so it took a while for Chevron to realize that we weren't going away, and they thought maybe it was,
So what were some of the consequences of Chevron controlling the city council?
Yeah. So what happened? So in 2003, right before the RPA was founded, the whole city council was in Chevron's hands. In fact, in the 90s, a Chevron representative had a desk outside the city manager's office. That's how dominating Chevron was over City Hall. So the city council members were in Chevron's hands. The city was spiraling downward. Nothing was being done to address the pollution in our city, the health aspects of our community,
So there was
the
pollution,
poverty.
from Chevron, and that's what you were fighting against?
Well, we were fighting the pollution. We were fighting the poverty and the crime. We had a reputation as a city with heavy crime, city with heavy pollution. And, the corporate model was defining the way forward in Richmond. It was like trickle down. Things will eventually change, but they never change. And so none of this downward spiral was being addressed in a positive way to reverse it. And so when we came about, we made it clear we were going to get on the city council, and eventually we got on mayor and the mayor's seat without corporate control. That was key. And, little by little, more and more people got elected. And the emphasis of getting on a city council without corporate money is really key, changing the composition of the council. But that wasn't the end goal. The end goal is to change the quality of life for the people of Richmond. And that's what we did over the course of a little over a decade. We reversed crime. We had a 75% reduction in homicides over the 8 years I was mayor. We got a minimum wage increase to $15 an hour. We passed the first new rent control law in California in 30 years. We limited Chevron's pollution, and we got them to pay their fair, or some of the fair share of taxes that we believe we should have gotten, over $100 million in additional city taxes from Chevron.
So that's a big deal.
Yeah,
So no
really
wonder
is.
they would be willing to spend $5, $6, $7 million to defeat you, because if they didn't, they were going to have to pay $100 million in taxes.
That's right. So they, that's what it's all about. They they knew we were gaining momentum. It wasn't just me on the council or me as mayor. More and more elected officials were being elected through our progressive movement, and they were afraid of us. They felt threatened by our movement. So they were willing to throw this kind of money to try and stop us. But it didn't work. So we just kept winning. And by 2016, we had this supermajority on the council. And, that's where things are today. And we're not turning back. And that's what we encourage other cities to do as well.
So now you got a $15 minimum wage passed in Richmond.
Yes.
And so now I'm going to guess all the fast foods, they closed up, right?
No.
Did they hire they hired robots?
No.
So they must all be losing money.
They're not, amazingly.
Really?
Huh?
So it turns out they can have a profitable restaurant business that serves fast food and pay a living wage.
And they could pay a decent wage to their workers, right? And that was always the threat. We're going to lose the businesses that we have. No, that did not happen. They pay what they have to pay.
But a Big Mac must cost $20, right?
No, the price of a Big Mac stayed the same.
Still the
believe
same.
It or not.
It's unbelievable.
I know. That's we just have to wake people up to recognizing that this false misinformation that these businesses are going to go away if we charge them their fair share of taxes. People get it now more and more, and we just have to keep spreading the message.
Yeah, there's no reason why the people who actually generate the billions in profit for fast food companies shouldn't share in the profits, right? I mean, they're the ones generating it. So it just makes this idea like, well, if you raise their pay to $15 an hour, they're just going to close up or something. Like it's just the craziest thing.
Yeah, no, the people who do the work are the people who are really providing this service, whether it's fast food or whatever, people, workers have a right to get a fair share. I mean, I'm standing for worker-owned co-ops. So I really like the idea of worker ownership, where you have the workers making the decisions and sharing in the profits, just a collective ownership. But unions are important too in these corporate entities that don't want to, but when they're forced to, they will pay the kind of money that our working class deserves.
Yeah, people, we did a video a couple weeks ago. Dr. Richard Wolf was here, talked about the power of co-ops.
Yes.
And they're very successful. Mm-hmm. And of course, the corporate media doesn't want you to know that, which is why you don't know it.
That's right. Yeah, they don't. Yeah, I went to Mondragon, Spain, which is really the world capital of worker co-ops. They've been in existence since the 40s, and they have
100,000 people, right, involved in that co-op.
That's right, and they have.
And they're
compete. Like the sixth wealthiest business in Spain. It's like a collective of 120 co-ops called the Mondragon Cooperative Corporation is what it's called. And I learned so much. And then I brought back that learning experience to Richmond, and we promoted the idea of co-ops. One of the big issues with co-ops is seed money, getting a group able to get going, while they're, because you don't make a profit right away. And so one of the things that I'm talking about in my lieutenant governor campaign is a public bank. And one thing we could do with a public bank is provide seed money for worker co-ops, and that's going to be something that will really help.
So we've been talking a little bit about this. Public banks. That's I'm glad you brought it up. Why do you think that we don't have a public bank already? And what are the great benefits of a public bank? Now, one of the big benefits that it's like when you want to fund an infrastructure a project for your state, you don't have to do bond measures, right? You can just have the bank lend the money at a decent rate, and that saves a lot of money, correct?
Absolutely. Having been a mayor of a city, I can tell you when you have infrastructure projects, you float a bond with the private banks who charge you, twice as much as the cost of the infrastructure project, in interest. So you have to pay back twice as much, you're borrowing the money, and you have twice as much to pay back, and that's the citizens, the taxpayers' money that goes for that. So when you have a public bank, you don't have that issue at play, and it offers the advantage of not having to pay this huge interest that the private banks pay. It also offers the advantage of us being able to put forward truly affordable housing projects, public housing housing projects that maybe we could put forward very low interest loans to affordable housing developers rather than these big luxury housing developers that we see taking over our cities often. And my thought is that we should create a high taxation for the luxury developers so that they are more inclined to go the affordable housing route and give these incentives to the truly affordable housing projects.
Now, you also had a great idea during the housing crash on how to beat the banks.
Yes.
You had an eminent domain. You were going to seize the mortgages of these houses that were underwater.
That's right.
And tell me about that.
Yeah. So in the midst of the foreclosure crisis, Richmond was hit really hard, with predatory loans and such. Our community had a large amount of underwater mortgages. I think this was by around 2009, 2010, 2011. I mean, the foreclosure crisis, as you know, went on for a while, and actually it's still going on. But at a certain point, 50% of our mortgages in Richmond were underwater. And we were seeking from the big banks, the private banks, to reduce the principals on these loans in line with the current home values. Economists of all political stripes were saying that was the way to solve the housing crisis. Lower those principals so you have it in line with the home value rather than the mortgage so high and the home value so low at that point. And the big banks were saying, no, we can't do this. We have investors all over the world. We can't get them together to make a decision about how to do this modification. So we said, well, if you can't do it, sell it to us, the city, and we will reduce the principals for our homeowners. We'll keep the homeowner in the home, reduce the principals, and put an affordable mortgage back in the hands of the homeowner. And if you won't voluntarily sell us these mortgages that are now, pretty junk mortgages, we'll take them by eminent domain. We'll still pay you the fair market price, but we'll use our city power of eminent domain to acquire these mortgages to help our homeowners, to help our neighborhoods stabilize. And Wall Street was up in arms, believe me. They don't want government to take over the role of Wall Street, which, market is the market economy, and they think they have the right to do whatever they want, regardless of the harm to our communities. So we got a lot of traction on that. All over the nation, people thought it was quite innovative, and we were ready to go, and other cities were saying, go Richmond. They weren't quite ready to join us. We were trying to get other cities to do the same and join in a joint powers authority of cities doing this together because Wall Street was getting to those cities as well. And they were telling them, we're going to redline you, or we're going to make sure that, your community doesn't get mortgage loans. And that's illegal, by the way. But anyway, we kept going until Wall Street got to Congress, and they told Congress, we know our congressional representatives are corporate dominated and financial industry dominated. So Congress put forward a bill that said any public entity that acquires a mortgage by eminent domain will not get government insurance. And we needed to insure the mortgages, with government insurance. So that kind of set the program aside, and, unfortunately. But we put so much pressure on Wall Street that they were pressured into doing some of these principal reductions voluntarily. So in that respect, we did gain some traction, some help for our homeowners, not as much as we wanted. But with a different Congress someday, we want to resurrect the program.
Yeah. With a different Congress, we'd have to get rid of the Democrats.
We've got to get rid of all the corporate-controlled elected officials that we have, that's for sure.
Our next live Jimmy Dore show is July 1st in Portland, Oregon, and July 15th in Chicago, Illinois. We're doing a live show July 15th in Chicago, Illinois. Go to a link right there for all the tickets to all the live Jimmy Dore shows. Plus, if you can help become a premium member, we give you hours of bonus material every week. Become a patron or a premium member. And if you're on Steam It, we're steaming it right now. Plus, every Saturday, we do a live Super Solid Chat Saturday where it's a live stream and you can ask us questions and we'll answer them back every Saturday, 2 p.m. Pacific time. Thanks for your support.